welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Sunday Dinner. I'm your host, Zach Radio, and I'm super excited for the guest I have on the show. Someone who's inspired me so much in Web3, someone who I would call someone who can connect the dots in this ecosystem, and I'm super excited to have Toby Lasso on the show today. How you doing, Toby?
What up, Zach, man? Thank you so much for having me. Stoked to be here, and thank you for your kind
Of
words.
course, Toby. Just being someone in this Web3 ecosystem and paying attention to everything that I've seen you doing, like in the last year and a half since I've been in Web3, you've been someone who has showed the community there's different ways to build in Web3 besides being a dev and being an artist. Because when you hear about Web3, those are the main two positions to really get into, and you being a manager of two of the best artists, most successful artists in Web3 that I've seen, and it's been super dope. So I kind of want to pick your brain and kind of understand what got you into Web3 prior to all your success. So if you can kind of give us some details regarding that, Toby, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I probably the best way to start is what I've been doing sort of like for the last 10 years. So when I was 18, I left university only after one semester, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I joined the army back in England, and I was there for 7 years, and I had some amazing experiences. And as an officer in the artillery, got to go away, do a bunch of different things. And when I left, I sort of felt a little bit like, that had given me a ton of structure and a bunch of guidance, but I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And when I left, I was sort of looking for something else to sink my teeth into. And I'd been obviously a manager of soldiers in the army as an officer, up to 30 people at a time. And I knew I wanted to sort of like take those skills and what I'd learned and adapt it into things that I had, felt were more attuned to what I enjoyed, art, music. And yeah, so I fell into cryptocurrency maybe 3 years ago, mainly through sort of altcoins and Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then was very lucky to sort of be here at the start of sort of the NFT boom, really. Still sort of looking for what I wanted to do and how I wanted to um, sort of position myself and maybe set up the rest of my life. I was lucky to fall into NFTs at the beginning and meet some just truly amazing people. I think that the reason why I love what I do now and what I get to do, the reason why I love what I get to do now is because I get to work with such amazing people and be around such amazing artists. Never being an artist myself, I wanted to make sure that I could promote other people and promote the art that I wanted to see all around the world. Fell into the NFT space and into the Cool Cats community very early on and met Vinnie in the Cool Cats community, where we sort of started talking together, and he said he wanted to create a project, and I said I'd be really keen to manage him and help build that project, and everything that sort of happened afterwards has started from that inflection point. I'm very lucky to run a management company called Nocturnal with my friend Matt Morgan, who has been instrumental in creating sort of this wider umbrella of what it looks like to manage artists through Web 2 and Web 3. I think there's a really cool distinction to be made about Web 3 being an interesting way to deliver art in more unique ways, but also Web 2 being a very important part of what makes artists tick, big industry stuff like Christie's and art galleries and physically in real life stuff is super important, and especially for building out massive portfolios for the way artists want to present their work. So sort of looking at a way of making management something that spans across both, and using Web3 as a way to sort of accentuate artists' success, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know, but yeah, dude, it's been a wild journey, and it's something that I'm so happy to be in now, because I feel like what I am building now is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and so I feel very blessed to know that what I do now I will do forever, hopefully, God willing.
Well said, Toby. So your love for art and being around artists is something that you've been around pretty much all your life, if I'm not mistaken. I remember in a prior interview you mentioned that your mom went to school for fine arts, so you were around art books quite a bit. Is that correct, Toby?
Yeah, that's true. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, my mum went to get her degree in fine arts. She went to the University of Southampton, and when I was growing up, I was just so interested in what she was doing. She actually brought me to a lecture. I think maybe must have been 5 or 6 years old, and I sat in the back of this lecture, this really adult lecture about fine art in general, and they were talking about Botticelli and his his practice and how he was a patron of the Medici family, or was paid by the Medici family to create art, and it really inspired me as a point, because I think that that practice in itself is so interesting. Like, I think it's being emulated now. When we look at like that time period, 1500s, of artists actually being paid to do what they do, right? In those days, you would be an artist to, you'd have to have a regular job, and then you do art for fun. And then the Medici family in Florence started paying people just to make art in general, and sort of inspiring the community around them. And they were very early supporters of like Michelangelo and Botticelli and some of these amazing other painters. And I think that right now we have an interesting way to do exactly the same. With Web3 especially, we can make sure that artists get the lion's share of the money, so that they can start to do things that they truly want to do. You give people $69 million, and he can create pretty much whatever he wants to. You give another amazing artist like Danny Cole hundreds of $1,000s, he can make a blow up Creature World playground and put it in the Hammersmith Ballroom in New York. And at that point, we sort of like create what is the beginning of a renaissance, right? When artists have enough money to do the things they've truly always dreamed in their heads, then we start questioning what can be done. I think people put a massive um, like walking spaceman in like 360 gallery inside Christie's last year, and that might not have been able to done if we hadn't paid him, or someone had paid him $69 million. And that's super super exciting, because I think we're on the cusp of something that could be really special, which is not artists competing with each other, but artists competing with themselves. Like, if any artists in the audience here were given, or could think of what they truly wanted to do with no amount of monetary limit, and then we multiply that by 1,000 artists, we're going to see some really special things over the next 10 years.
Well said, Toby. So just looking at your experience and the artists that you manage, we all know who Vinny is. Well, most of us know who Vinny is, but you also manage Will Nichols, who was one of the founders of the Weather Report. So I come from, I feel like I buy a lot of clothes, and there's a brand called Stussy. And Will used to be one of the marketing guys for a really big streetwear brand called Stussy. I don't know if he still is or not, but that's how I got familiar with Will, which was years ago. So I've been following his marketing career for quite some time, and to see him in Web3 and create a project like the Weather Report, I was very very intrigued to see the success of that project, which is very successful at this time. What inspired you to jump on board with that team with Weather Report, Toby?
Yeah. So Will is just a fantastic human being, and crazy intelligent mind in general. I love getting to just sort of pick his brain about how he's thinking and how he sees the world, because he sees it in a really unique way. He comes from a ton of success in the streetwear industry, creating his own companies and selling them on, and brands and stuff like that. And again, like you said, working for Stussy, and I think he built like the Hype Beast Instagram
Yep,
account up from
he did. He
from
did.
nothing, yeah, to
Yep.
like 1 million followers or something like that. Like, a very 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 creative and intelligent person. And at the beginning of the year, when Will and I sat down, because we were friends with the Cool Cats as well, and he said, would I said I'd love to look into managing you, and if that was something that would work. He said, "Oh, I've got a project that I'm working on with my friend Zach, that we'd love you to come on board on and help with." And it's been a real joy and an abject pleasure, honestly, to work with two people who I consider very close friends, but also crazy, crazy intelligent creatives.
So one of the things that really drove me to the weather report was having an understanding of the team's background, but one of the main utilities was to show the community how to use their IP. And that is something that's very, very intriguing to me and very exciting because no one is really educating on how to use their IP. And reiterating what we just stated, somebody like Will, who has a marketing background, who's built some of the biggest streetwear fashion platforms in Web 2, what can we expect from the weather report in that aspect? Because I'm super bullish on those educational tools and opportunities.
Yeah, great question. We've run a couple courses through our Discord and stuff for our holders that help to empower people to use their IP. There's a huge amount of money to be made for anyone through NFTs by using IP correctly. If you want to start up your own brands or clothing, I mean, you just all you have to do is look at like Bored and Hungry, which is that amazing food shop that use their IP of their bored apes to create things. And I think we're really only like scratching the surface of what it truly means to use IP correctly. And we're all just sort of like fumbling around in the dark at the moment and trying to find the things that work. But I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see things really start to explode. I mean, even from like large companies buying up different pieces to different NFTs to then use for marketing purposes. People subcontracting their NFT licenses to bigger companies to be used in marketing exploits and adverts and all this other stuff, as well as people just using their own brand identity. Like you have a loser club, and you identify with that person or that NFT, and it becomes you. I think it's another cool way of like creating pseudo anonymous identities that don't necessarily have to be a picture of yourself. Like this cool cat, granted, looks like me in real life, but it's not me. And it's really cool to be able to mess around with the idea that if I want to make a podcast or I want to do whatever, I can be represented as this, and people can see me as this. Online, and there's something to be said about owning your online identity, if that makes sense.
No, that makes plenty of sense, Toby. And following your path in Web 3, one thing that we can always kind of tie you to, and even Vinny as well, is the Cool Cats community. You guys speak so highly of that community. Where when we're in this ecosystem, we understand how we understand the dope communities that everybody supports, and Cool Cats are one of those communities. But you've been in there for quite some time, and you've made a lot of relationships within that community. Can you kind of talk about how it changed your life? Because just hearing you speak about it and the relationships that you've created has changed your life drastically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really at the principle of all of this is that the reason why we're all here, the reason why NFTs are successful, the reason why these future brands will be successful is community. We're here because we've found a love of friendship and kindness and understanding in those around us, and we're maybe united by uh, an excitement in where the community can go, where the project might go, where the price might go. But the Cool Cat community for me was a love of Klon's artwork, and I feel very lucky to be, friends with Colin, like through all of this now. Like he's become one of my closest friends, and that means the world to me, through his artwork. And I think that people were just drawn to the art, and the people that I met inside that community have changed my entire life because we were all drawn to this. I think back now, like it was not. last July gone before, when Cool Cats minted, and everyone was sort of like, "What's going on here? You know, is this worth money? Is this what's really happening?" And everyone was sort of just like mystified by the idea of what NFTs were. Maybe they had never minted anything before, and everyone was just there. They were curious, I think is the word I'm looking for. Like there was this like crazy curiosity, and it drew in some of the most intelligent and lovely people that I've had the pleasure to meet. I mean, early people like Andrew Wang, and Vinny, and myself, and Klon, and just this excitement that we're all here together celebrating someone's artwork, but also meeting each other and making connections, And I was like, that's how I found Vinny, and that's how I fell into the job that I'm in now, and get to build the things I do now. But Andrew's a very close friend of mine, and he's going on to do amazing things, building his own companies, and being an important thought leader in the space. And I think that just goes to show you that these communities are more powerful. The most powerful thing about NFTs are the actual communities. And I know that there's money to be made and there's flipping to be done, but if you give yourself over to the idea of committing to a community that you find to be good and honest and pure and fun, then really the sky's the limit, because the friends are worth more than any money you can really make. The money's great too, don't get me wrong, but the friends will help you make more money in the future.
Well said, Toby. And kind of going back to what you kind of talked about, you touched on prior, you starting your own management company, Nocturnal.xyz. Can you kind of talk about the start of that, you and your business partner, and who's on the roster at this time?
Yeah, thanks so much. So Nocturnal. I mean, I started managing Vinny and Will, and I very quickly realized that I wanted to expand what I was doing, and that I could help more people, and try and build out a long-term vision. I may not be a physical artist myself, but I do have an idea for what I want to achieve in life, and what I can hopefully help others and amazing artists achieve as well. And I wanted to wait for the right time, and do it with the right people. And it sort of fell into my lap, honestly, when my friend Matt, who I've been friends with for about 12, 13 years, since we were about 15 years old, came out to LA, and he's working at a company called YMU, which is a big agency here in England, I think in America as well, managing a whole bunch of amazing artists as well. He's worked in artist management uh, and musician management for the last 10, 12 years, in the Web 2 side of things, so to speak, at different record labels, and creating different bands, and putting people together in the right places. He worked at YMU managing an amazing artist and former Radio 1 disc jockey called Reggie Yates, a girl called Amelia de Monderberg, who runs YouTube's Chicken Shop Date, which is really cool and interesting. And side note, and he'll hate me for saying it, but um, Louis Theroux was on that show, who's an amazing documentary filmmaker here in England. And that TikTok song, My Money Don't Wiggle Wiggle, It Folds, is because of Matt. So Matt put the team together to create that song, and then it blew up, which is really, really cool, and speaks to his intelligence, and like using people, using clips in the right way to sort of connect more with what's going on. TikTokers especially. So that's super cool. And anyway, sorry for I'm going off book again, but he came out to LA and saw what I was doing with NFTs, and I hadn't talked to him about 2 years, and it turned out to be the week of NFT LA, and I got to take him to all these different events and introduce him to people, and Vinny and all these people are out, and he was like, I would really love to be involved in this. And I said, well, it's time that we've always talked about working together, and it was time to do it then. And so we built this company, and I'm so proud of what it is, and truly, truly, truly excited for what it is going to be, with so many different amazing artists that we're working with, that we haven't officially announced yet. We're currently working with, obviously, Vinny, obviously Will, and an amazing photographer called Jack Bridgeland, who is probably the number one magazine photographer in the world at the moment. He did the Robert Pattinson cover shoot for GQ. He shot both Ferrari drivers and Maranello, for GQ, and a whole bunch of amazing Vogue covers, and all this other stuff. And his work is extremely distinctive and amazing. And trying to find a way to bring him into NFTs, which will, be done at the right time in an interesting way. Also working with an absolutely unbelievably talented oil painter called Devin Desjardins, who paints just the most unbelievable, deep, rich oil textures, or oil painting textures, in a series called Guardians and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he sells his physical paintings for $150,000 at Christie's, and trying to find a way for, to bring him into NFTs, which will happen soon. And taking these artists who have already found success in what they do, and trying to elevate it, in ways that bring together Web 2 and Web 3. And so luckily, Matt's understanding of the Web 2 management space and my understanding of the Web 3 management space come together to sort of create a symbiotic nature of the two. And there's a ton of stuff that I can't wait to tell people about. But yeah, we've got a couple of events coming up as well for NFT London, which is really exciting. 3 days of panels, and a large party happening on the Saturday. And it's, yeah, I literally was just thinking a few days ago how truly lucky I am to wake up every day and do what I want to do, and not go to a 9 to 5 and feel like I'm not working um, for someone else. I'm working for myself, and working for other artists, and building something that will be around in 20, 30 years.
Definitely. You're kind of cutting out a little bit, Toby. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
just no, no, you're fine. But on that note, it's kind of, you don't really, well, at least I haven't ran into too many successful artist managers in the Web3 ecosystem. Like, how were you able to elevate you as a person to attract a Vinny, to attract a Will? Because Will was already established when you met him. So what is the feedback that you can give someone who is trying to get into artist management, when somebody like a Will who's already established, like what was the factor for him to be managed by you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, a great question. I think it comes initially, and this is something that there's two founding principles of Nocturnal, which are, we have to be friends with the people that we manage, and we have to truly love the art that they make. And those two principles are not things for normal management companies. Normal management companies see money, and if they want to make money, they'll use artists however they want. But it was super important for us to lead by those principles. And so, to answer your original question, I think that those people decided to work with me because, I developed a friendship with them beforehand, and I laid out an understanding for how what I could do for them would be better than what a bigger management company could do for them. And it kind of ties into what we do differently from larger management companies, which are, I really hate the term manager, and I thought, I waited for the long, I thought on for the longest time about how I could call myself something other than a manager, because to me, like, managers steal from their artists. They that 30 or 40 years prior, everyone hates their manager. They hate talking to managers. They've been robbed or wronged or done whatever, and unfortunately that's the term that people understand, right? And so the way I wanted to think about it was, if I can't change the term manager, then I want to change what it means to be managed, right? And I think that came with laying out a bunch of different plans about how we would go about building people's careers. And it comes, and it sounds really cheesy to say, but it is honestly rooted at its very core in a friendship and a love for art, for the artists I manage as art in general. And I think that if you have some sort of tenacity or an excitement for the people that you look after, then sort of success will follow in suit. When people can look you in the eye and understand that what you're saying is genuine, and the things you're talking about and the artists you represent, that you care about, they can tell that, then the rest of it sort of makes sense. And all artists want at the end of the day is to feel respected, understood, and that you're on that journey together. And I think that that's probably a better way of making it clear is that, the things that I do in cooperation with the artists that I get to work with. I feel very lucky to be the right hand man for a lot of people, or the first person that gets sent a lot of artwork, or should we be doing this, should we be doing that, and to do things together. I might not be the one making the art, but I help make a lot of the decisions. And yeah, I know that was kind of a roundabout way of saying it, but it's definitely rooted in that understanding of friendship for sure.
Oh, thank you for articulating that, Toby. Um, Prior to you like making that transition to LA, you were interviewing and working on being a artist manager for the music industry, if I'm not mistaken. What made you dive into the Web3 side instead? And will you start managing Web3 music artists? Because we know music NFTs are going to play a big part in the future of Web3. And you doing what you're doing as a manager, have you thought about managing Web3 musicians?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, before I got into Web3, actually, right after I left the army, I thought that I truly only wanted to work managing musicians. And all my friends who are in bands and been signed to a bunch of different record labels said, please, please, please don't get into music, or the Web 2 side of music, because you will end up resenting music. And I have a deep love for music. I've made a Spotify playlist every single month for the last 5 years. It's my longest commitment to anything. And I truly love music, and I'm so glad that I didn't end up. I got down to the last two people for this job at Universal Music here in London, and I didn't get it. And that's what sent me out to LA, trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Um, and then it kind of made sense. Like, I don't know why I'd never really considered it before, because I have come from a family of art patrons, and I have a deep love for art. But the NFTs in general gave me that connected me to physical artists, to painters, to digital artists. And I remember being on like a crazy mushroom trip in in LA, and like staring at myself in the mirror, which you should never do on a mushroom trip because it's very scary. And then it hit me, and I was like, no, manager of artists, like, and I kept going, artists, artists, art. And it kind of hit me in the face, and I was like, no, that's what I want to do, um, instead. And it was kind of like it was a moment I'll never forget. And I'm very lucky to have had experiences like that, I suppose. But yeah, to the idea of like of musicians, I would love to under Nocturnal as well. I mean, Matt has managed a whole bunch of different bands, and has been in music for a while, and something I definitely like to look into doing when the time is right. But really, I prefer working with physical artists and painters and stuff like that, because I can connect with a little bit more, and I think there's a lot more that comes with record labels and um, touring and this other stuff that doesn't necessarily exist in the physical painting, or the physical artist realm. Music NFTs will be huge. They already are huge. I mean, I use the example of oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name. Channel Trace. Channel Trace's drop with music NFTs that happened a few weeks ago. Just creating a whole bunch of different beats, and then making them into NFTs and then selling them, and you having the IP, going back to the IP thing, you having the IP to use that music however you'd like. And even Matt said to me, because we're setting up a live podcast thing for Nocturnal, he was like, oh, we could just buy one of those, and then that can be the intro music. And that's again, like, we're at the Ask Jeeves points of music NFTs, and we're nowhere near where Google is going to be in a few years' time. But I think people are sick to death with labels and record companies and royalties and Spotify and this other stuff that again takes money away from artists. Pennies and pennies and pennies people getting in royalties. So it'd be really exciting to see that happen, and I would love to answer your question, to work with musicians in future. But I'll leave it to the more intelligent, amazing people who are at the spearhead of music NFTs, while I focus on the outside in the interim.
I can't wait to see that all come full circle with Nocturnal and Web3 music artists. But with the market going through what it's going through in Web3, what advice would you give Web3 builders and artists in the space right now, Toby?
Yeah, great question. It's it's tough out here, but I think that it's actually one of the best opportunities and times to make connections with people who you can build things with in the future. It's very easy to get caught up in the fact that the price is down and that volume is not there. But those of us who have been around for a year and a half know what the euphoria of high volume and sales looks like, and it's actually manic in more ways than one, right? It's manic in the way that it's almost impossible to make connections with people, and it's impossible to get people on the phone, and it's impossible to really understand what's going on or get a grip, and to figure out what's going on in general, right? Because there's so much going on. There's a lot of volume going on. There's a lot of projects, all this other stuff. And so the moving nature of a bear market, we have to lean into the positive tendencies of those things. Obviously, we'd like the price to go up and all of our investments to be up so we could sell them and make loads of money. But the understanding that those times are coming back again, we can wait uh, and use this slow moving time to make connections with people who are like minded and intelligent, and build those things. I mean, there's the old trope. It's like in the bear we build, but that's truly how it should be. We should be building the foundations and cementing the foundations in which to build a house, so that when the bear market comes down and the hurricane comes, the house is still standing. It's a good time. It's actually a good time to be here and making friends, because it's slower, and the people who are here truly believe in what's to come, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes plenty of sense, Toby. There was a picture with you, Drift, and Andrew Wang on the top of a building in New York City. For those who know Drift, we know he's a risk taker with his artwork, his photography, and he included you in a picture that was circulating within Twitter. And can you kind of give the backstory of how that picture came to fruition in New York City, Toby?
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Drift and to Andrew, who are both just uniquely special and wonderful human beings and amazing artists. I connected with Drift a year and a half ago on a Twitter Spaces, and at the time he was the only other person who I'd met in the space who was a veteran, albeit he was in the American Army, and I was in the British Army. But we'd both been deployed, and he was someone who I really appreciated the way that he spoke, and where he talked about his experiences, and he was a real guiding light for me, as just leaving the army being like, okay, there's a way to go about building the things that you want to do, and he inspired me massively to go out and find it in myself to develop the things that I really wanted to do, and it's hard to explain for anyone who potentially hasn't been in the armed forces, but being in the army, or in any service, is special because it gives you a way. It gives you a way to wake up in the morning, and something to achieve and all this other stuff. But when you do leave, it takes a while to reintegrate into normal society. And I was so ready to leave the army, and mentally, but I wasn't ready. I didn't realize how long it would take me to reintegrate into society and to find that um, desire to go out and do my own things, because I'd been told what to do for so long. And so, yeah, big fan of Drift. And so I remember listening to Drift say, he dealt with his PTSD by climbing, and he goes on in many different interviews to talk about how that serene quiet in process of going through and climbing, and getting to the top of a building, taking photos, really, or maybe in some cases not taking photos, helped quiet his PTSD. And I deal with a small amount of PTSD, I've been asking him since I met him, please take me on a climb, please take me on a climb. I know that not anyone's allowed to take. I know you don't really take anyone or anything like that. And he was like, yeah, one day, one day, one day. And then I think it was in Austin. I saw him in Austin, and I said, I really, really want to go on a climb. And he said, right, New York, we're in New York next month for NFT NYC. Um, we'll go. And it was huge. I was so, so, so excited. And he texted me, he was like, we're doing it tonight. And I was like, great. Texted me at 3 a.m. And I think I have the screenshot. It's like, me and Andrew and him in a group chat. And he's like, come to this address in Midtown, 3 a.m. Wear all black or something like that, or don't wear anything too flashy. Andrew, can you bring a flathead screwdriver? and and yeah, so we it was a really special experience, and we went to this place, and it's a construction site basically of a big massive group of apartment blocks that are being built in Midtown. And we climbed, sort of, I suppose, broke in to the base level here. And I remember we opened the door and the alarm goes off, and Andrew and I look at each other and we're like, fuck. And then I turn around, and within 2 seconds, Drift put 4 or 5 different keys on the keypad, and the alarm just turns off. And I just remember nervous laughing, how does he know what what the code is to turn the alarm off? And There's actually a video that Andrew took. I actually saw it the other day. Weirdly enough, it came from my memories, where we're watching Drift climb over the thing to get into the base level, and he was like, "How are you feeling, Toby?" And I was like, "I'm good." And he goes, "Well, there's either one or two things that will happen. There's two things that can happen. We get in, we have a great time, we get out without being caught, and we have a memory for the rest of our life. Or we get in, we have a great time, we get caught, and we mint our mug shots." And I was happy with either way. I'd be happy to get arrested and mint my mugshot. And anyway, yeah, so it's 70, 80 flights of stairs to get up here, and on the back and Drift, we don't use the elevators because it's just part of his rules. And you climb up these 70 flights of stairs, which is not easy in just not easy in general. And I remember walking up at second or third flight, and I was like, fuck, this is what the firefighters on 9/11 had to do while the building was burning. And they've got all this kit on or other stuff, and it really hit me that how intense it would be to have all this smoke everywhere, all the kit on, and then also be walking up and down these stairs trying to help and save people and get people out. And obviously it's just me and Andrew sweating in no kit whatsoever. And yeah, got to the top at 4:30 in the morning, and just one of the most amazing views I've ever seen. I had never appreciated really how beautiful Central Park looks like when you see it from above, because it's so big. You don't see it when you're on the street. And yeah, a very special moment that I got to share with two of my very close friends that I'll forever be thankful for. I'm glad to not have been arrested. Oh yeah, and when we came down, and it was 7 a.m, and there's people knew we were in the building basically, and Drift had figured out, and lo and behold to us, Drift had figured out what level we needed to come on to go onto the building next to it. So we came out on the 10th floor and jumped across to the next building, and then out of nowhere he finds the fire escape all covered in moss on the top of this building on the 10th floor, and pulls it once with his hand, and it sort of moves a little bit, and then he because Drift is huge and he's jacked, and he pulled it again and bangs this door open, and then there's a whole marble staircase going down, because it's $10 million apartments or something, and we just walked 10 flights down on the adjacent building. And as we left, all these people are running into the building, or not running into the building, but they're alarms are going off and that stuff. And we just left, and he was like, "Do you want to go for breakfast?" And we're like, "Yeah, okay." And it was kind of funny to just leave while everyone else was trying to find us in the building, but we'd left in the building adjacent. A very special memory, and thankful for my friends, and thankful for Drift for giving me the opportunity to climb with him. Sorry for the long story.
No, thank you for the long story. I feel like Drift has a blueprint to every high rise building in the country. So, like, I'm not surprised that he was able to navigate through random buildings and to facilitate those pictures. But one thing that I kind of want to touch on that you mentioned, like being in the military and PTSD. My father was in the army, was in Vietnam, also suffers from PTSD, and he's definitely afraid of heights. So I wouldn't be able to take him on any type of high rise building with your drift in any way, shape, or form. But being able to find something that can give you that balance, because growing up with my father, he suffered a lot from PTSD from his experience, and but finding that balance can really save your life. And I think it's dope how, even though you guys were breaking the law, you were looking for that balance, and and it takes a lot to find that balance sometimes. So I definitely applaud you and Drift for doing such a thing in that regard, and what you guys have done for your countries in the military.
Mate, thank you for your kind words. Yeah, I think what because you said it extremely well. For me, it's about finding something that you can sink your teeth into, and finding that process, right? So process for Drift is climbing, and that's a way he quiets his mind. PTSD is a very strange thing, or it manifests itself differently in so many different people. But for me and Drift, when we've had talks with each other, it's finding ways to quiet your mind, and for me, that's skateboarding. You know, it's something that I can do that I don't think about anything other than what I'm doing. I'm skateboarding. And it's rooted in childhood and fun and excitement, but it helps quiet my mind, and finding that balance comes with quieting your mind and sinking your teeth into something that stops you from sort of sitting in a weird sort of despair, because sometimes it can feel all encompassing and despairing, but it's not that, and it's just trying to find something that it takes your mind off things. For Drift, it's climbing. For me, it's skateboarding. For artists, it's art. And I would say to anyone who deals with things like that those feelings can really feel scary and all encompassing, but they are what make us human. We're very lucky to be alive. I'm very thankful to be alive, most certainly, through all my struggles and things that I've been through. But finding a way to have purpose and meaning, and that striving for more and for better is good enough, and just getting up out of bed and putting your shoes on and walking outside is a step in the right direction.
Well said, Toby. Thank you so much for sharing that sentiment, honestly, because some people need to hear that feedback and that experience, so they don't think that they're the only ones going through something, which I've tend to see a lot. But I do want to be very mindful of your time, so I'm gonna start closing it out momentarily. I do have a couple of more questions for you, and if anybody wants to request, please just request before we close it out momentarily. So Toby, like, how do you balance Web3 and IRL? Because a lot of people that you work with, you mentioned that you're friends with personally, and you talk to them quite a bit. So, like, how do you balance Web3 and IRL on your day to day?
It's a great question, and the answer is I'm certainly still trying to figure that out. It can be it can be really tough, honestly. But I think trying to find the joy in blending it is quite exciting too. I get to work with people who I consider actually my best friend. Like Vinny is my best friend, and I get to work with him. But I also there needs to be time for us to be friends as well and to do things that are not work related. And I think that I don't have a perfect answer because I'm still trying to figure out what that perfect answer is. But I think it's just being mindful of the two, and being vocal and open and honest with the people around you. Where you're like, I need some space, or I'm gonna turn my phone off and gonna go and do this. And I think if you let yourself, if you don't create clear boundaries, then you can let everything sort of like melt into that like melty. emoji puddle. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, it sort of doesn't really know where it starts and stops. And so having boundaries and being like, every Saturday morning is my time, or every Sunday is my time, or on Tuesday nights I'm going to go skateboarding, or I'm going to do this other stuff. And even if it's just for yourself, trying to figure out points in the week where you can do things truly for yourself, is really important. It's been, for me at least, the way that I try and stay as grounded as possible, because a part of the reason why I think that I've had a little bit of success, and that the things that I do have been successful, is because I've thrown myself massively into this process, because I've thrown myself into Web3. I've encompassed my life with it, my friends and everything. And that's a testament to the people around me, and all that other stuff. But there needs to be a point where um, you scale back a little bit and do things just for yourself. And it's, again, just a work in progress. I'm still trying to figure it out. If you find out, Zach, let me know.
I was asking you for some guidance and some feedback there, Toby. But thank you, thank you so much. Um, you are the co-founder of Letters with Vinnie Hager. If I'm not mistaken, the 1 year anniversary is coming up at the end of this month. Correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
What are you? How do you feel about the success of the project and how far you guys have come since originally meeting in the Cool Cats Discord?
I, I'm I can't truly believe it, honestly. And there was a really special moment a few weeks ago when I was in Baltimore with Vinny, and we were just at dinner, and I was actually going through some photos, and I was like, "Oh, this is the first photo I ever took of you in person," and it turned out that it was that day, a year ago. And we've been talking for weeks, and he flew to LA, and I met him. We met each other in person for the first time, and it sort of brought back a crazy wave of emotion, because it felt like that was 5 or 6 years ago, but really it was only 365 days ago. Because what we have done together, and how much the space has changed, and this other stuff, has just felt like it could have happened over 6 years. And that's a testament to just how amazing the community is, and all these different opportunities, and Vinny's work ethic, and the things that he wants to do. But it's been amazing. I feel very lucky, and truly just lucky. I feel so lucky and happy to have met someone so special, and been a part of something so special, and to continue to do special things with him, and help put his artwork in more places, and truly do the things that he wants to do. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's very exciting, knowing what I know, and what's coming for him, and what's coming for everyone else I get the pleasure of working with. Um, but it is exhausting at the same time. A lot of this is absolutely exhausting. But when it's a labor of love, it can't really be a sad exhausting. So yeah, just thankful and grateful, very grateful to the people who have helped both me and Vinny inside the community, and friends, and people who've reached out, and connected us with other people like you, Zach, putting us on platforms, and asking us questions. And yeah, just hopefully we continue to give back as much as we can, and help. That's all I care about.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much, Toby. Before we close it out, is there anything that we can be expecting from Toby in the next 6 months, which is like 2 years in Web3?
um, yeah, just definitely more Nocturnal stuff. Some amazing things happening in all the projects I get to work with, and with artists and stuff. But Nocturnal is 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 my magnum opus, in a way. It's something that I will build for the next, or until I die, honestly, or until I sell it for a shitload of money in 50 years time. um but no, it truly is. It's a labor of love, and I'm so excited to get to work with more people. We're suffering from success in a few different ways, where we've got tons of amazing artists who want to work with us, but we don't have the capacity to give what we give to our artists, and what we want and we deserve, what our artists deserve, we can't give to 10 or 15 people. And so we're having to scale, and do other things. But our coming out party, in a way, will certainly, or will certainly be at the beginning of NFT London on the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. So if anyone's in London, we'd love to see you. More information will come out from me, and from the Nocturnal page, and other things. But yeah, definitely more and more. More life, more friends. Um, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be amongst friends and get to work with some of the most talented people I've ever met in my entire life.
Toby, you're amazing, and continue to build the people around you and guide the artists that you are assisting grow in this ecosystem. I applaud you for what you've done thus far, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you, Nocturnal, Will, Vinny, everybody in your ecosystem. I can't wait to see the future of that, and I want to thank you again for pulling up to Sunday dinner today, and educating the community on you and Web3 and the future of managing an artist. And I don't know the exact how you articulated it because you don't like the word manager, but
But I am one. It's okay. I might not like the term, but I am one for sure. And yeah, mate, dude, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your platform, and thank you for what you do for creators and artists. It's a real pleasure to get to speak with you in person after a year and a half of following each other and supporting. And yeah, more success to you. I think what you're doing here is fantastic, and I'm thankful to have joined you for an hour to talk about life and everything. Appreciate you for real.
Likewise, Toby. Blessings to you and the family. I'm gonna go ahead and close it out with some Snoop Dogg. Everybody,
Hell yeah.
appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Peace out.
Peace.